Good morning, everyone. I trust you can hear me back there. What? Anybody that can't hear me, raise your hand. Good morning to all of you. Good morning to those watching online again. We are pleased to have you there. A little bit shorter introduction this morning. We don't have any young people today. They're on a field trip this morning, so they won't be here, and I don't see anybody with a clipboard. So we don't have that either. You want to make an announcement, Jerry? So we'll just dive right in. Let me start with the things that this was shared with me by a couple of other people in the class, so we'll just put these up here. It says high sodium, high cholesterol, lots of toxins. Your blood test is remarkably similar to a potato chip. That gets personal, you know? All right, kids today will never know what it's like to take a ton of pictures and have to wait a week to find out they were useless. You can do that right now instantly.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, well, whatever. And then finally, I don't watch football, so I don't know who Taylor Swift is, but he must be fast. I guess, I don't know. All right. Put my coffee cup down. Start this up. Okay, let's begin with prayer. Good and gracious God, we ask your blessing upon us this morning as we continue our study of the work of your servant Samuel, and as he leads your people, may our study be a blessing to us as your Spirit works in our hearts to equip us to serve you. Bless our time in Jesus' name. Amen. Okay. We are at chapter 8 of the first book of Samuel. The situation is we are going to mark a little time between chapter 7 and chapter 8. If you have your own Bible, you can write in like 20 years goes by between those two chapters. Samuel has been judging Israel, and we talked about what that means. It doesn't mean that he sits in a courtroom, but it does mean that he governs, that he settles disputes, that he leads. He's a military leader. He's a political leader, judicial leader. Yeah, not much, but yeah, that's sort of it. And things have been kind of settled down between Israel and the Philistines for 20 years or so. They have a kind of an unspoken or unwritten truce. They just, there we are, we'll just leave everything alone for a while. And that's kind of the way it is as we go into chapter 8. A profound shift takes place in chapter 8 from Samuel being judge of Israel to their desire for a king. And chapter 8 gives us some of the reasons for that. So we're going to read the first 3 verses of chapter 8. Linda, please.
When Samuel grew old, he appointed his sons as judges for Israel. The name of his firstborn was Joel, and the name of his second was Abijah, and they served at Beersheba. But his sons did not walk in his ways. They turned aside after dishonest gain and accepted bribes and perverted justice. Okay,
this is really out of character for Samuel. He's the one who is so vehement about serving the Lord and doing this properly, and then he goes and appoints his 2 sons to be judges. Why is this out of character? Number one, judges were consistently appointed by God, not by someone else. Secondly, it was not a hereditary position. Throughout the book of Judges, the closest we got to that was Gideon, who the people wanted him to appoint his sons. He said, no. It's not hereditary. But now Samuel, for whatever reason, appoints his own sons to be judges. It could be, one commentator suggested that one of the reasons that he did that is because he didn't want a king. And he knew that that pressure was growing. And well, maybe by making his sons as judges, that would alleviate that. Actually, all it did was accentuate it, because his sons were like Eli's sons. They were corrupt. They took bribes. They simply did not operate the way they were supposed to. They perverted justice. They did things that would automatically disqualify anybody to serve as a leader. Things they did were condemned in the Old Testament. So while Samuel was very superior to Eli, who was the high priest before, we saw that story when Samuel was born, Eli and Samuel had one thing in common. They were not good parents. They allowed their sons to get away with anything. And it's just sort of out of character for Samuel. But nonetheless, Samuel is as real and as human as the rest of us. So he was not a good father, allowing his sons to get away with things. Now that all serves as a backdrop for what follows now. That's what's going on. Israel lacks good leadership. Samuel's old. His sons are a mess. They want a solution. So let's read on from verse 4 down through 9.
So all the elders of Israel gathered together and came to Samuel at Ramah. They said to him, "You are old, and your sons do not walk in your ways. Now appoint a king to lead us, such as all the other nations have." But when they said, "Give us a king to lead us," this displeased Samuel, so he prayed to the Lord. And the Lord told him, "Listen to all the people are saying to you. It is not you they have rejected, but they have rejected me as their king, as they have done from the day I brought them up out of Egypt until this day, forsaking me and serving other gods, so they are doing to you. Now listen to them, but warn them solemnly, and let them know what the king who will reign over them will do."
Okay. The elders of Israel. We aren't told how many that is, but it is representatives. Every tribe had a hierarchy within the tribe of clans and elders in each clan, and that goes back to Moses. So representatives of the tribe all come to Samuel, and it's interesting that they come to Samuel for this. They see Samuel as being God's representative. He is the leader. And so if there's going to be a king, it's got to be done through Samuel. So they come to Samuel and they say, "We want a king." They are probably afraid that Samuel's going to die and these boys are going to be running things, and they don't want him. So their solution is, plus behind it is the threat, the ongoing threat of the Philistines. And so they want a king who will be like all the nations. That's their driver. A king who will be a symbol of national power and unity and lead them in battle. That would be their guarantee of security. Samuel is hurt. He sees it as a rejection of him as a judge, so he goes to God, and God says, "Nah, it's not a rejection of you, Samuel. It's a rejection of me." Linda, would you look up Deuteronomy 17, 14 to 20? And we'll read that. God knew this was coming. This is back at the time of Moses. He said, they're going to want a king at some point, and it's not going to be a good thing, but nonetheless, they're going to want it. So Deuteronomy 17 kind of lays this out. This is Moses speaking now, telling us what God is saying. You find it? Okay, go ahead.
When you enter the land the Lord your God is giving you, and you have taken possession of it and settled in it, and you say, "Let us set a king over us like all the nations around us," but be sure to appoint over you the king the Lord your God chooses. He must be among your own brothers. Do not place a foreigner over you, one who is not a brother Israelite. The king, moreover, must not acquire great numbers of horses for himself, or make the people return to Egypt to get more of them. For the Lord has told you, you are not to go back that way again. He must not take many wives, or his heart will be led astray. He must not accumulate large amounts of silver and gold. When he takes the throne of his kingdom, he is to write for himself on a scroll a copy of this law, taken from that of the priests who are Levites. It is to be with him, and he is to read it all the days of his life, so that he may learn to revere the Lord his God and follow carefully all the words of this law and these decrees, and not consider himself better than his brothers, and turn from the law to the right or to the left. Then he and his descendants will reign a long time over the kingdom of Israel.
Okay. It's fascinating to me as you read the accounts, especially in the Torah, that God lays out all these things and says, do it this way and everything will be fine. And what do the people do? The exact opposite. God says, okay, they're going to want a king. Couple of things that you need to remember. Number one, let me pick the king. Don't you pick him. Let me take someone who is from your family, from an Israelite, not a foreigner, which they pretty much did. But then they weren't to accumulate a lot of wives. Well, Solomon failed on that one. They weren't to accumulate a lot of wealth. Solomon failed on that one, etc. They just didn't quite get it. But nonetheless, God knew this was coming. And so he set out some parameters for when this happens. And now those parameters are put into effect with Samuel. He tells Samuel, you're going to want a king? Yeah, all right. But this is, I'll take care of this. I will appoint them. And so the rejection of God said, this is not a new thing. Do you remember the golden calf incident? When the people had no sooner crossed the Red Sea and got into the wilderness, and Moses went up on Mount Sinai, and Aaron and the people said, well, we need a God. And so they made a golden calf. So they have been rejecting God since day one. And God knew that this was going to happen again. And so he tells Samuel, yeah, they're going to want a king, but warn them what a king would mean. An interesting little note on verse 10. We haven't read verse 10 yet, but I'm going to read that. Samuel told all the words of the Lord to the people who were asking for a king from him. We don't catch it in the English, but in the Hebrew, there's an interesting little play on words. They were requesting a king. The Hebrew word is Sha'al. So God gives them Sha'al, Saul, as a king. His name means requested. So you want a king, you're going to get one. Here he is, named Saul. He means requested. We don't catch that in English, but that's buried in the Hebrew that was originally written in. Okay, so God tells Samuel, give him a king. Now Samuel heeds God's word and warns him about what a king would be. I want you to read 11 down to, we'll read down to the end of the chapter. I'll just start at verse 10.
Samuel told all the words of the Lord to the people who were asking him for a king. He said, this is what the king who will reign over you will do. He will take your sons and make them serve with his chariots and horses, and they will run in front of his chariots. Some he will assign to be commanders of thousands and commanders of 50s, and others to plow his ground and reap his harvest, and still others to make weapons of war and equipment for his chariots. He will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers. He will take the best of your fields and vineyards and olive groves and give them to his attendants. He will take a tenth of your grain and of your vintage and give it to his officials and attendants. Your men servants and maidservants and the best of your cattle and donkeys he will take for his own use. He will take a tenth of your flocks, and you yourselves will become his slaves. When that day comes, you will cry out for relief from the king you have chosen, and the Lord will not answer you in that day. But the people refused to listen to Samuel. "No," they said, "we want a king over us. Then we will be like all the other nations, with a king to lead us and to go out before us and fight our battles." When Samuel heard all that the people said, he repeated it before the Lord. The Lord answered, "Listen to them and give them a king." Then Samuel said to the men of Israel, "Everyone go back to his town."
Okay. So Samuel says, "You want a king? Are you really sure you want to do this? Because you're not going to like this." It's like talking to a teenager. You know, no offense to anybody who has teenagers yet at home, but it's like talking to a teenager. They know better than you, regardless. They just do. And you can talk all you want. No. And then when they, Mark Twain said he was amazed how much his father learned between ages 16 and 21. And that's kind of the way it is. So Samuel ticks off the consequences, and I've listed them there for you on the slides. Number 1, he will take your sons and press them into service as his horsemen. He needs to have chariot drivers. Number 2, he will need to have a standing army. So he will appoint them as commanders and leaders and things for a standing army. Number 3, he will take your ground. He will take men to plow his own ground, reap his harvest, make his weapons. He needs to have all kinds of people serving him. Number 4, he will take your daughters to be perfumers and cooks and bakers, and probably his harem as well. But that's not quite said. Number 5, he will take the best of their fields and vineyards and olive orchards. He will take their servants. He will take their young men and their donkeys and put them to work. He will take 1/10 of their flocks, and they will ultimately end up being slaves to the king. All of that's going to happen, and all of it did. When you set up a government is kind of demanding and needs people and needs resources and needs things. And instead of their tithe to God, they're going to now give a tithe to the king, or better. All of that happens. It's interesting, their response, verse 18, they will cry out, he says, but God's not going to listen. In that day you will cry out because of your king whom you have chosen for yourselves, but the Lord won't answer you. You made your choice. God's going to say, okay, you made your choice. Live in it. Finally, that's the only answer to a teenager. You made your choice. Live in it. You know, go ahead. That's the way it is. You got to deal with it. And that's what God's answer to them. Give in to their request. They insist on a king despite Samuel's warning. And Samuel finally goes back to God and he says, God, they really want this. And God says, that's okay. Do it. Now, why would God acquiesce? Why would God want them to have a king? I want you to put King David in mind and then go from King David all the way to Jesus. If you look at Matthew's genealogy, Matthew gives a list of people up to David and then a list of people after David, and it is an equally long list. There are 14 names up to David. There are 14 names after David. That's the way Matthew constructs his genealogy. But what's his point? His point is that David is the peak and that Jesus is the son of David. He is God's Messiah. He comes in the mold and in the form of David. God has all of this in mind. He has all of this planned. And so in order for that picture of Jesus as the Messiah to become to full fruition, he's got to have David. And in order to have David, he's got to have a king. So he says, okay, appoint a king. But he does. The one that they choose is really a mystery. He's not, the only thing that Saul has going for him, as we will read in chapter 9, is that he's a tall, handsome dude. It's about the only thing going for him. And so you got to wonder, why did God choose Saul? Well, that's where I'm getting ahead of the story. Let me stop and see if you got any questions. Yes, Roger.
I think I heard someone say, be careful what you pray for, you might get it.
Yeah, I've often said if I would ever write my autobiography, that would be the title. Be careful what you pray for. because God has answered my prayers in ways in my life that I went, oh, okay, I see, now I understand. Thanks for not doing that. Yeah, Jack.
When verse 18 says they will cry out, but God won't listen, does that imply that they're crying out to the Lord, or is it just that they're grumbling?
Probably the latter.
They're just grumbling.
They're grumbling.
They're not really reaching out to the
Yeah,
Lord.
and God's just going to let them grumble. Either way, God's not going to answer them.
Yeah.
You know, you made your bed, now go sleep in it. That's really the answer God has for them. You want a king? Fine. I'll give you a king. Go sleep in it. There you go. You're not going to like this. But their drive, and it's interesting. I see myself in all this. They had in their mind, this is going to be great. We're going to have a king, and he's going to fight our battles and give us security, and we're going to be like all the other nations. They're going to, oh, this is going to be great. And God says, oh, yeah, really? Sure it will. Sure it will. And it's a classic example, Roger, of, be careful what you pray for. God just may give it to you. Okay, now you got to deal with it. Any other comments or questions? All right, let's see what happens. Enter the scene a man by the name of Saul, whose name in English is, you asked for it. It's really what his name means. You asked for it. Here you go. Go ahead, Linda, read chapter 9. Read the first 10 verses or so.
There was a Benjamite, a man of standing, whose name was Kish, son of Abiel, the son of Zerah, the son of Bechorath, the son of Aphiah of Benjamin. He had a son named Saul, an impressive young man without equal among the Israelites, a head taller than any of the others. Now the donkeys belonging to Saul's father Kish were lost, and Kish said to his son Saul, "Take one of the servants with you and go and look for the donkeys." So he passed through the hill country of Ephraim and through the area around Shalisha, but they did not find them. They went on to the district of Shalim, but the donkeys were not there. Then he passed through the territory of Benjamin, but he did not find them. When they reached the district of Zuph, Saul said to the servant who was with him, "Come, let us go back, or my father will stop thinking about the donkeys and start worrying about us." But the servant replied, "Look, this town, there is a man of God. He is highly respected, and everything he says comes true. Let us go there now. Perhaps he will tell us the way to take." Saul said to his servant, "If we go, what can we give the man? The food in our sacks is gone. We have no gift to take to the man. What do we have?" The servant answered him again. "Look," he said, "I have a quarter of a shekel of silver. I will give it to the man of God so that he will tell us which way to take. Formerly in Israel, if a man went to inquire of God, he would say, 'Come, let us go to the seer,' because the prophet of today used to be called a seer." "Good," said Saul to his servant, "Come, let us go." So they set out for the town where the man of God was.
Okay, that far right now. Saul is introduced through his father down to 5 generations, which was the same way Samuel was introduced down to 5 generations. So that's not unusual, and that's very typical for the Old Testament, for people, that you get a genealogy almost every time, that there's some legitimacy to this person. But the key of that genealogy is that he's a Benjaminite. Now that may not mean much to us unless you read the book of Judges. The Benjaminites almost don't exist anymore. They were almost wiped out by their fellow Israelites. In the book of Judges, there is the story of a Levite who has a concubine/wife who comes to a town in Bethlehem in the land of Benjamin, and the people of the town treat him like the people of Sodom and Gomorrah wanted to treat Lot. It was a nasty place. Homosexuality and evil and stuff was rampant. and they end up killing the man's concubine. And he divides her into 12 pieces and sends them to the 12 tribes and saying, this is what the people of Benjamin did. And they attacked the people of Benjamin and almost eliminated until somebody had enough sense to go, whoa, stop. We don't even want to kill them all. And they had to find wives for the people left in Benjamin so they could keep the land, their inheritance going. It was a nasty, nasty time. So the Benjaminites were not esteemed highly. They were the smallest tribe. They had not much influence. They were not esteemed. And so that's where Saul comes from. He comes from the tribe of Benjamin. And Saul is not what you would classify as kingly material necessary. He's a donkey herder. That's his job. That's his task. His father raised donkeys. And he's sent on a mission to go find some missing donkeys that had wandered off. And so he and his servant go wandering around in the hill country of Ephraim, which is just north of the land of Benjamin, back into the lands of Benjamin. They look all around, can't find the donkeys. And they end up in the land of Zuph. Now, in the land of Zuph was a town called Ramah. And in Ramah, that's where Samuel lives. We are told that Saul was handsome and that he was tall. He was a head taller than anybody else. So he sort of stood out. You know, I had a tall brother, and I was always great to find him in a crowd because he was always, oh, there he is. I can see him above the crowd. And well, that was what Saul was like. You could find him easy. His head was above everybody else. And so the father sends him to find donkeys. They search the area. They came to the land of Zuph. And the servant of Saul says, oh, I know. There's a man of God here in Ramah, although the town's not given to you. The man of God, there are two names for a prophet here. Not prophet. A man of God or a seer is what they are called. And he says, let's go check with the seer. Maybe he can ask God and God will lead us to our donkeys. Yeah, I know, that sounds a little hokey, but that's kind of the way things operated then. Saul says, well, I don't have anything to give him. Saul's like me. He didn't go rock around with cash in hand. And then the servant says, well, I've got a quarter of a shekel. That's an ounce of silver. Not much, but it's something. And that's where the writer interjection verse 9 that a seer was the former name for a prophet. It's interesting. The writer of Samuel, and we've told you before, we don't know who that is. We don't know exactly when he wrote, but probably towards the end of the divided kingdom, before the Babylonians took over. He recorded all of this. And it's interesting that he gives us these glimpses back. Oh yeah, back then this is what it was known as. And it's still like that till today and things like that. So that means helping his readers along. Well, back then a seer was a prophet. Okay, so we know that they went to see Samuel. It's interesting, Samuel's not told who he is yet. They just say they're going to go see a seer. Okay, so they say, let's go and find him. So let's read on, verse 11 down to 14.
As they were going up the hill to the town, they met some girls coming out to draw water, and they asked them, is the seer here? He is, they answered. He's ahead of you. Hurry now. He has just come to our town today, for the people have a sacrifice at the high place. As soon as you enter the town, you will find him before he goes up to the high place to eat. The people will not begin eating until he comes, because he must bless the sacrifice. Afterward, those who are invited will eat. Go up now. You should find him about this time. They went up to the town, and as they were entering it, there was Samuel coming toward them on his way to the high place.
Okay. So they went up the hill. They're going up towards the town and to find the seer. and they met some young women who tell them, yeah, the seer's up there. He's going to the high place. And the high, if you ever have some time and want to do some study in the Bible, take a concordance and look up high place. It's throughout the Old Testament, and they shouldn't be there at all. The high places were places where Baal worship was conducted. And it was sort of in every town, every area, every community had a high place. A place where they would offer sacrifices to Baal and to the Ashtoreth. And after 400 and some years of judges and so forth, and there was a tabernacle that was around. Right now we don't know for sure where the tabernacle is. And the worship of Yahweh and the worship of Baal had gotten so intermingled that it was very difficult to tell one from the other. Samuel knows Yahweh. He worships him, but where does he worship him? At the high places, where Baal worship was. And so sometimes it was Baal worship, sometimes it was Yahweh worship, and it's really hard to decipher what was going on. And you wonder how that can happen. Well, 400 years is a long time. Our we're going to be celebrating what, our 250th? I remember the 200th. We celebrated that in 76. And so 400 years is a long time. And so a lot gets lost. Now, how many of you were raised by German parents or grandparents? How many of you speak German? Bingo. See, that's a long time. Things change. We merge with our surroundings, and so the people of Israel merge with the Canaanites, with the Baal worshipers, and while they were distinct, they weren't. And so Samuel's going, I didn't mean to get out that up, but you got to read high places that way. Whenever it talks about a high place, it's talking about a place where, Yahweh was worshipped, but also Baal. And it was a mixture. And even Samuel has trouble, I think, separating the two. Why? Because the Torah is there, but it's mostly by memory, by rote, than by written. So there you go. And so they're told to find Samuel. As soon as he enters the city, he's going up there for a sacrifice. They need the prophet. They need Samuel for the sacrifice. Remember, he's a priest. He's a Levite. They need him for the sacrifice, and he will bless it. Kind of reminds me of my brother was serving a vacancy, and their church had a dinner, and they didn't start with a prayer because there was no pastor. You got to have the right person to bless the food. That's my second job, food blesser. Hey, if you put a plate of food in front of me, I'll pray all you want. Okay, so Samuel's going up there, and they went up to the city, and they found, and now verse 14 is the first time we are given the name of the seer. It's Samuel, and he's coming towards them. Let's read on, verse 15. I'll stop here. I don't know, just read on.
Now the day before Samuel came, the Lord had revealed this to Samuel. About this time tomorrow I will send you a man from the land of Benjamin. Anoint him leader over my people Israel. He will deliver my people from the hand of the Philistines. I have looked upon my people, for their cry has reached me. When Samuel caught sight of Saul, the Lord said to him, "This is the man I spoke to you about. He will govern my people." Saul approached Samuel in the gateway and asked, "Would you please tell me where the seer's house is?" "I am the seer," Samuel replied. "Go up ahead of me to the high place, for today you are to eat with me, and in the morning I will let you go, and I will tell you all that is in your heart. And as for the donkeys you lost 3 days ago, do not worry about them. They have been found. And to whom is all the desire of Israel turn, if not to you and all your father's family?" Saul answered, "But I am not a Benjamite from the smallest tribe of Israel, and it is not my clan the least of all of the tribe of Benjamin. Why do you say such a thing to me?" Then Samuel brought Saul and his servant into the hall and seated them at the head of those who were invited, about 30 in number. Samuel said to the cook, "Bring the piece of meat I gave you, the one I told you to lay aside." So the cook took up the leg and what was on it and set it in front of Saul. Samuel said, "Here is what has been kept for you. Eat, because it was set aside for you for this occasion, from the time I said, 'I have invited guests.'" And Saul dined with Samuel that day. After they came down from the high place to the town, Samuel talked with Saul on the roof of his house. They rose about daybreak, and Samuel called to Saul on the roof, "Get ready, and I will send you on your way." When Saul got ready, he and Samuel went outside together. As they were going down to the edge of the town, Samuel said to Saul, "Tell the servant to go ahead of us," and the servant did so. "But you stay here a while, so that I may give you a message from God."
Okay. All right. So they find the seer, and God had already arranged all this. Remember, God said to Samuel, "We're going to find a king. I'll have one for you." And Samuel doesn't know who it is yet, except that this guy is from the tribe of Benjamin. And I'm sure Samuel will go, "Really? Okay, that's what you say." And so then they meet the seer, and that's interesting. Saul does not know Samuel by sight. God has set this up. He said, "I'm going to let you know who this person is. Tomorrow you're going to meet him, and he's going to be, and notice, he shall save my people from the land of the Philistines." God's been paying attention. He knows that they need someone to lead them, and he's going to provide them. So Samuel finds Saul, verse 17. The Lord said, "Here is the man I were told you about." And Samuel said to Saul, Saul said to Samuel, "Do you know where the seer is?" And Samuel says, "Yeah, I'm it." And now this is a loaded statement here in verse 19 and 20. "Go up before me to the high place, for today you shall eat with me." There's a big banquet there. And in the morning I will let you go and will tell you all that's on your mind. So he just to let Saul know that Samuel knows what he's talking about. Your donkeys that were lost for 3 days, don't worry about them. They've been found. Well, how did Samuel know that Saul was looking for donkeys? That would have been a question Saul would have asked. "And for whom it is all desire, and for whom it all is all that is desirable in Israel? Is it not for you and for all of your father's house?" Interesting exchange. Samuel says to Saul, "Yeah, I'm the seer. Go up to the high place, we're going to have a meal. Oh, by the way, your donkeys have been found, and you're going to be king." Hello? What was that? That's really what he said. "You are the one that has been the desire of all Israel. You're it." Saul he went to find donkeys, not to become a king. And the donkeys have been found, and you're going to be king. All right, that's interesting. So they go to the high place, and he puts Saul in the place of honor, and goes to the cook and says, "Remember that piece of meat I had you put aside? Well, now's the time to bring it out." Saul had arranged for all of this. Samuel had arranged for all this for Saul. And so he got the choicest piece of meat at the feast. He's seated at the head of the table. Is being told, "You're going to be king." So then finally they have the dinner. Saul goes to stay with Samuel. And in the morning, Samuel wakes him up and sends him on his way. But first he says, "I'm going to tell you what God has for you in store." It's a fascinating story of Saul walking into this thing. They're going to find a Samuel because they want to find donkeys. They find Samuel, and he says, oh yeah, don't worry about the donkeys, but you're going to be a king. This is new. There is no king in Israel. Now there is. And he's really not sure about this. And I think Samuel's probably not real sure about this either. Like I say, right now, the only qualities that Saul has demonstrated to Samuel is that he is tall and handsome. That's it. Saul immediately objects. He says, but I'm from the smallest tribe and the smallest clan in the smallest tribe. Sounds like Gideon. Very much of the story is a parallel of Gideon. Gideon tried to reject his choice of judge. He said, I'm a little guy and I'm from a little clan and a little tribe. Who are you choosing me for? God says, don't worry about it. I got it taken care of. Kind of says the same thing to Saul. Saul says, I'm tall, but I'm from a little clan and a little tribe. And you're just the right guy. So Saul is chosen. Comments or questions? Yes, John.
Saul denies that he's a Benjamite in 21. Saul answered, but I am not a Benjaminite.
No, read it carefully. Am I not a Benjaminite?
Am I not?
Am I not?
Mine says, but am I not?
Am I not a Benjaminite? Am I not from the smallest clan?
Okay.
So he's admitting it. Yes. You got to read. If you change those two words around, it changes it dramatically. And I think you read it that way. Yes. Yeah. Am I not a Benjaminite? You know, he knows that Benjaminites don't have a whole lot of claim in Israel. They're just pretty small. Anybody else have a comment?
So they're going to appoint him king, but they don't tell him what he has to do. I mean, they just kind of...
Well, other than God says he's going to lead them against the Philistines. And Saul, he's about to tell him in chapter 10. He'll give him a little bit more details of his job. But it's not a long job description. You're going to be king and you're going to go fight the Philistines. Okay.
Instantly became a warrior.
Yeah. He's a donkey herder, folks. He's young. He's probably in his early 20s, late teens, early 20s, something like that. But he's a donkey herder. He doesn't have any qualifications to be a king.
Kind of like David was a shepherd.
Yeah, David was a shepherd. He didn't have any qualifications to be a king either. And that's a classic story through the Old Testament and even into the New Testament. God picks the least likely people. He picks Abraham. We are not told why he picks Abraham. He just does. Isaac is the second child, not the firstborn. He picks the second one. Jacob was technically the second-born, not Esau. And God picks Jacob. Why? Well, I don't know. Jacob was pretty sharp guy, but why did he pick him? Samuel, took a long time for Hannah to have Samuel. There's a constant repeating of God picking the ones he wants, not the ones you would expect. All the way down to Paul. Paul was chosen by God, not the one you would expect, but the one God chose. The disciples, if you do a study of the disciples, I read an article that if HR was running the show and would picking the disciples, none of Jesus' disciples would have qualified. They were unlearned men who were, fishermen, and they would not have qualified for the job. But they did. Yes, Roger.
In America, we had a peanut farmer as a president.
Well, yeah. And let's even make it more personal. God chose you. Remember that. God chose you. No one volunteers to be a Christian. God chooses us. His Spirit works in us. He makes us His child. How many of you chose to be baptized? There are some out there who did. But I didn't. I was 2 weeks old. So I didn't choose it. But I've been following the Lord ever since. God chose me. It's an interesting concept when you think about it. God can make us into people who serve Him. Sinful people that we are, God can still use us. Saul was not perfect. He will demonstrate that over and over again. But God used him for His purposes. Throughout Samson, Samson was a mess, but God used him. There are all sorts of stories like that through the Old Testament of people unqualified, not the one you want, but God used them to accomplish His purposes. That's one of the reasons I like the book of Judges, because it's a story after story of unlikely people that God used for His purposes. Okay, I deviated off onto that little sermon. Sorry about that. But it's a fascinating story of how God chose people. So let's read a little bit of chapter 10. Read the first 8 verses or so, and let's see what we can get out of this.
Then Samuel took a flask of oil and poured it on Saul's head and kissed him, saying, "Has not the Lord anointed you leader over His inheritance? When you leave me today, you will meet 2 men near Rachel's tomb at Zelzah on the border of Benjamin. They will say to you, 'The donkeys you set out to look for have been found.' And now your father has stopped thinking about them and is worried about you. He is asking, 'What shall I do about my son?' Then you will go on from there until you reach the great tree of Tabor. 3 men going up to God at Bethel will meet you there. One will be carrying 3 young goats, another 3 loaves of bread, and another a skin of wine. They will greet you and offer you 2 loaves of bread, which you will accept from them. After that you will go to Gibeah of God, where there is a Philistine outpost. As you approach the town, you will meet a procession of prophets coming down from the high place with lyres, tambourines, flutes, and harps being played before them, and they will be prophesying. The Spirit of the Lord will come upon you in power, and you will prophesy with them, and you will be changed into a different person. Once these signs are fulfilled, do whatever your hand finds to do, for God is with you. Go down ahead of me to Gilgal. I will surely come down to you to sacrifice burnt offerings and fellowship offerings, but you must wait 7 days until I come to you and tell you what you are to do."
Okay. Samuel takes Saul aside, takes a flask of oil, and anoints him as the king of Israel. Not a real formal anointing yet, or appointing, but nonetheless, Samuel makes sure Saul understands you are now the king. And he does it with a rhetorical question. Has not the Lord anointed you to be prince over the people of Israel? And the answer is, yeah, he has. And then Samuel gives him, in order for Saul to know that this is really from God, Samuel gives him some signs. These are the things that are going to happen, and they all happen fairly quickly after that event. The first sign will be assure him that the donkeys have been found. Don't worry about that. The donkeys have been found. In fact, your father's more worried about you than the donkeys. So that's the first sign. Donkeys have been found. The second sign will be 3 men who meet Saul, one carrying young goats, another carrying loaves of bread, and another carrying a skin of wine. They may have been going to make a sacrifice. We're not sure, but Saul is given 2 of the 3 loaves of bread. Why is that? Just a minute, I'll get to my notes here. The giving him of 2 loaves of bread will be and they will giving him 2 loaves of bread is intended as an offering to God and indicates Saul is now the king. By giving what was an offering to God to Saul indicates that he is now the king, and Saul's acceptance of that indicates his acceptance of it. So Samuel says, you're going to take those. Okay, I will. A slight note, the second sign is to be by an oak tree in Tabor. The Hebrew actually is a terebinth tree, which is translated oak. My commentator said the Latin name for it is a Pistachia palestina. So a pistachio tree is really what it is. It's a member of the cashew family, I was told. Okay. So it's a unique tree. It's not just a thing. So by that tree, you're going to meet these three guys, and they're going to give you a couple of loaves of bread. That is a way of saying you're the king. The third sign would be a group of prophets. And when he meets the prophets, they will be playing instruments and singing and prophesying. Now, I probably spent an hour digging into commentaries, asking the question, what exactly does that mean, that they are prophesying? That's the answer I got. Zero. No one really knows what that means. There were some guesses. Prophesying does not mean foretelling the future. That's not what it means. It means that they were singing. It means they could have been proclaiming the Word of God, which sometimes prophesying is. We know that. It is evidence that the Spirit of God is upon them. Whatever that is. I personally think, and I don't have anything to base this on, but if you have ever heard of speaking in tongues, that's not a unique Christian event. That's true in almost all religions. There is that phenomenon. And I kind of think that's what they were doing. Something unique, something that marked them as prophets. Prophets were schools of people that went around. Elijah had a school of prophets that he hung around with. So did Elisha. But that's much later. But anyhow, Saul meets this school of prophets, and you will meet a group of prophets, and then the Spirit of the Lord will rush upon you, and you will prophesy with them and be turned into another man, is the translation I have, the ESV. That's an interesting statement. What's going to happen to him? And I don't know what that means, other than the Spirit of God turned him into a prophet. He became different. He was no longer just a donkey herder. He became a prophet of God, whatever that looked like. And the author seems to think you should know what that looks like. And so he simply says it. But the key is verse 7. When these signs meet you, do what your hand finds to do, for God is with you. When the Spirit of God comes on you, you will know what you're supposed to do. And then go down to Gilgal, and there wait until I come and will offer a sacrifice. One little side note, back in verse 5, you will come to Gibeah. That's his hometown, by the way. And there is a group of Philistines there, a garrison of Philistines. Some commentators think that what he was supposed to do to go to Gibeah and attack the Philistines right away. He doesn't. And one commentator suggested that was typical of Saul. Saul, while king, almost always avoided a fight. He was never aggressive. He always was reactionary. His son Jonathan initiated fights with the Philistines, but Saul never did. I think that's making far too much out of that statement. It's just simply yeah, there's Philistines there. You're going to deal with those later, but just so you know they're around. And I don't know if there's any more to it than that. The one commentator I'm working with really made a big play of that, a couple pages worth of stuff, that Saul should have attacked the Philistines. I don't know that that's in there. Be that as it may, all these signs that Samuel lays out are indicators to Saul that he has been appointed king. Go to Gilgal, wait there, and I'm going to come and sacrifice. Those are Saul's instructions. And when we get into it next week, we will discover that one thing that Saul does is that he ignores instructions. He doesn't really do this the way he's supposed to. And so we'll get into that. But that Israel now has a king. Most of Israel, in fact, hardly anybody in Israel knows this yet, other than Samuel and Saul. But Israel now has a king. Okay. This is going to be interesting. All right, comments?
Prophets prophesying, that's a verb.
Yeah.
I suppose anytime they talk, they're prophesying. Does it matter what they're saying?
Probably not.
No.
Probably not.
So it's more simple.
But but whatever they're doing is an indicator that they're prophets.
Yeah.
We'll see that when we read on in chapter 10. Doing what they're doing tells people, oh, that's a prophet.
Yeah.
Okay? Yes, Kelly.
I'm going to the beginning of this, and
Yeah.
Saul doesn't even know who this guy is,
No.
and yet he's telling him to do things, and he's doing it.
Yes. Yeah, so he is doing that, but Saul is a bit kind of like, oh, okay, whatever. And these signs happen to him whether he wants them to or not. I mean, he leaves Samuel. He's actually on his way home when he leaves Samuel, and these things happen. Bing, 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 bing. And he's heading to Gibeah. That's his home. And these three signs happen along the way. All of the way of telling Saul, remember this guy back there you talked to? Yeah, he's right. You're going to be king. And Saul's trying to figure out what that means.
No.
So, yeah.
And also, when he finally has that last sign,
Yeah.
people rush upon him. I think it's kind of an awakening for him.
Oh, yeah, very much
As a
so.
young man,
Yeah.
he's going, I'm a donkey,
Right.
herder. Okay, just like you said, well, yeah, okay.
Right.
But then I just think, just at that point, there's a change in him that
Right.
says, oh, I get it now.
Yeah, we're going to see that when if we read on, if we have more time, we do it on, but we'll get it next week. When we read on, it kind of dawns on Saul. These things happen to him. He doesn't really initiate them. They happen to him. And, okay, whatever.
The first book of the Kings of Israel
Yeah.
talks about this in length,
Yes.
what you're talking about here.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and reread that. Okay, interesting story of the appointment of Saul. At least I think it's interesting. I hope you do too.
Yeah.
But it demonstrates, and one of the things that you get throughout all of this is that God is running the show. Even though the people, down to Saul, are reluctant participants, God's still in charge of this thing. And all you can say when you read about God being in charge is, woo, thank the Lord. God's still in charge today, and oh boy, is that a good thing. Because all we can do is screw it up. So, and on that happy note, let's pray. Gracious Lord, thank you for the blessings that you give us each and every day. We ask that you would guide us today and each day, that we may be the people you've called us to be, that we may serve in a way that you would want us to serve, that we can be blessings to others. We commend to you those who are ill, those who are in need of your care. Continue to work your will in their lives and bring them help and healing. We ask all of this in the name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen. Have a great week. We'll see you here next week. Oh, don't forget to turn your clocks back Saturday night. Fall back. You can come to church Sunday, but you'll be an hour early.